So this episode is called "Cause It's a Tiller." Bass players, why am I going through the process of replacing a perfectly good tiller? Why do I have to build that tiller and just not buy a tiller? How am I going to do it? And whose help am I going to get? Um, this is a little bit beyond my scope. Um, Although, a couple people together, working together, can move mountains or move a tiller. So we're going to create that tiller. That's this episode and maybe a couple of more because where we are in the process is nowhere near being finished. And in fact, um, we'll probably not finish until the springtime, and I'll tell you why later. All right, stay tuned because it's a tiller. So I just wanted to take a little aside here. This video channel is about sailing with a point of view. And I kind of came to the realization I'm sitting here talking about myself as a sailor and as a ski patroller. And I'm sure it can come off that, I was some rich country club kid, grew up in the lap of luxury, skiing, sailing, all that kind of great stuff. But really nothing could be further from the truth. I grew up in a lower middle class household. For much of my teenage years, my dad was unemployed. But I still had the opportunity to ski and to sail. Um, when I was in high school, I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to a company called Peak Ski Tours, where I would load a bus with skis and ski boots, and we would take people skiing, and I would teach them to ski all through the day, drive home, and unload the truck. And this is what we did every weekend, and this is how we got to ski for free. When I was little, my mom worked at a summer camp, and I learned to sail there. And why I bring this up is because I think sailing has a lot to offer, and yet it's a really a diminishing sport. Um, I was recently on Cape Cod. I was at we were staying on Buzzards Bay, and an old timer there was telling me that 25 years ago, every boat in the mooring field was a sailboat, and now maybe 20%. Sailing is um, not instantaneous. You have to learn how to do it. You have to have access to the water. You have to have access to a boat. You have to have access to lessons to learn. And quite frankly, we as a society um, reject about more than 50% of the people in our society who will never sail and don't think they have the opportunity to sail. And yet, sailing offers so much. Um, and some of the research I've done, um, I found an organization called Rocking the Boat. I found this from watching the Samson Boat Works videos. And they work with inner city kids and get them to build boats and then sail their boats. And U.S. Sailing has something called REACH, which is where they talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think although they're correct, I think sailing is much more STEAM, sailing, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. And I think sailing um, is a really great vehicle for hands-on education, for cross-curriculum education, for real-world project-based education. Both my kids went to a project-based high school, and it becomes one gets a level of ownership that you don't have through textbooks. And I spent 30 years in a classroom as a teacher, so I know a little bit about this. Um, and sailing is the perfect vehicle for this. And not only that, sailing, just like skiing and some other sports, are sports or activities that you can enjoy for a lifetime. I think of, you know, Friday night football, right? It's a big thing, Friday night football. But most kids who play Friday night football, that last game in high school is the last game they'll ever play. Some few get on to play in college, and very, very few get on to play professionally. And so what happens is people go from being an active participant in the sport to sitting on the couch and being a spectator. Sailing's not like that. Skiing's not like that. Golf is not like that. There are other activities and other sports that translate to a lifetime of activity for yourself and with your family. And so part of my goal here is in this video series is to say, how do we make sailing more accessible to everybody? Even people who never thought they might like sailing. And part of that is we can look at it through the educational standpoint, or can we engage some of our schools to have a sailing curriculum as part of a interdisciplinary science, technology, engineering, arts, and the math? There are people who do that, not many, but sailing is really a perfect vehicle for that. And selfishly, it keeps sailing alive in our society, and not only for rich, wealthy yacht club kind of people. How do we get people sailing? How do we get people involved in these activities for the long term, for the benefit of all of us, for the benefit of those people who love to sail, who love to ski, who love to do other things? All right, back to It's a Tiller. I've been really excited about the prospect of building a new tiller during the month of November. As you can see from this video, there's an outboard mounted in a well fore of the rudder head. This was to keep the beautiful lines of the transom of the boat. The only problem is that the tiller hits the top of the motor. I could have gone maybe with a smaller motor, but in the Hudson you need at least the 4-horse that I have here. So I did call Cape Cod Shipbuilding, and they had some ideas, including retrofitting with an inboard diesel, which I don't think at this point I'm going to spend the money for. So the best option is to rebuild the tiller. My buddy Kris, who is a neighbor not only at the dock but at home, offered up his shop where we are going to take thin strips of wood, laminate them into the shape of the new tiller, which will give us kind of that rise that we need. So Kris is a neighbor of mine, both at the marina. His 134.5 is right across the dock from mine, and lives up the road from me. So Kris kindly offered his shop, and what we did is we started by cutting blocks and then mounted those blocks to a piece of MDF to create a form that we're going to bend the new tiller laminates to. So we started ripping laminates out of a piece of red oak, 2-inch thick, 6 inches wide, 5 feet long. The first thing we tried was 1/4 inch. And you can see from this video that 1/4 inch just would not bend
We may have to go
to
thinner.
shape.
Yeah, that's my gut feeling. If it's going to say anything about it, it's going to say it pretty soon. Kind of a nice shape though. I mean, if we can get this, I don't think we can get that.
No, it's this shape. I think we gotta go thinner.
Yep, it's kind of.
So we went to 1/8 of an inch, and at 1/8 of an inch we heard.
I don't like that sound.
And how about a little thinner?
Kind of go thinner. Sure.
Oh yeah.
That's what the survey says. I'm wondering even about just a bathtub soak for a number of hours.
Yeah. I'm not hearing anything. Not yet. You're hearing that too, huh? Oh, there it goes.
Bastard!
Well, we finally figured out that a 16th of an inch would be just about perfect. As Kris would say, we have proof of concept. Unfortunately, the table saw burnt up, so we had to wait, put it on hold until we could get another table saw. So we destroyed a table saw. What's our choices now? Get a new table saw, rent a table saw, find someone else to rip the wood. Well, let me tell you what we're working on, or what we've worked on, and most of that you'll see in the next episode. We found out that 1/16 of an inch is the proper width, and so can I get somebody to rip me 24 boards out of a piece of oak? I called a buddy of mine, Andy Chase, who's a guitar builder, who offered to do it. Andy, you'll be meeting in the spring when he comes sailing with us and talks about his guitar building. I reached out to a friend of mine, Mike Coleman, again, someone you'll be meeting in the spring. Mike is a true Renaissance man. He is a poet. He is a musician, and he has for 50 years been a master carpenter. And the third choice was to rent a new table saw or buy a table saw. So what we ended up doing, and we'll give you a little sneak preview, is my buddy Mike Coleman said, you know, I got wood 30 inches thick that's not doing anything, and I could just cut out a table saw, cut out a tiller from the shape, that you give me. So that's one way we went. The second way is we rented a table saw from Home Depot, and we cut slices and epoxied them up. Now, one thing that I need to tell you is that when we brought this table saw back to Kris's shop from Home Depot, and when we were looking it over really carefully, we noticed somebody had installed the blade backwards. The people at Home Depot never checked it, and this is a serious issue. Somebody could have got really hurt if we didn't notice it first. The table saw had screws missing, was not in greatest repair, but most importantly, somebody had mounted the blade backwards. And it behooves you, if you're renting a power tool, to make sure that everything is right. We were able to fix it. We were able to cut the laminates. You'll see that all next week. And again, in the spring, you'll meet both Andy and Mike, both master carpenters, both really interesting people who really have something to say and a point of view. Please let me know if you know organizations, or if you are somehow involved in making sailing more accessible for diversity, equality, and inclusion, because that is my mission. And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching today, and we'll see you next time.